Welcome back to another episode of Sound Powers Go to the Movies. Touly is busy, so I'll be reviewing the outfit by myself. So just a fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. An expert tailor must outwit a dangerous group of mobsters in order to survive a fateful night. So let's begin with my first pro. The staging of the film all takes place inside one shop. This reminded me of the film Rope by Alfred Hitchcock and how that film was also filmed inside one apartment. But the real technique is the Mise Scene, whose definition is how they arrange the scenery and stage properties in a play or film. So the director knew that he was limited by shooting inside a shop, so he made the most of the shots by using the actors, the props, in such a way that you never lose track of a person or item. For example, when we see Richie and Francis come in to the shop and go to the back, it's only 3 people, but we see all the items and props in the same scene with the tailor in front and the mailbox in the back. This makes it so you don't lose track of anything and start speculating what is happening off screen. The same thing happens with the trunk. It's just like Rope. It's always in the scene and they're asking about where is Richie, even though we know Richie is inside the trunk and dead. We do see blood start to pool underneath the trunk. This is related to the situation as one drop begins to get bigger, just like the lights are getting bigger. So this technique was very nicely done and executed, but we did have some of other tricks as the shop consists of different rooms. So we have transitions from one to another room, and that was also well done along with another technique. Next is the number of cast in the movie. It was great on point. It was not too many, so you could keep track, and not too many in one shot at the same time. Again, to make it easier to keep track of the names and who's who and keep it simple and not too complex. As some left, others entered the scene, but never was there too many on set, and if so, the dialogue was limited to just a few people speaking and not all screaming at each other at the same time. Next point is the cuts. Well, not the clothing cuts, but the film edits, which are cuts that were used in the movie. There was one scene in which I noticed the sound of the shears coming before the actual image of the shears cutting the cloth. This, along with the internal monologue of the main character, gave us a closer look to understanding what he was thinking, especially when he was beginning to string along the other characters into believing a narrative that he was actually setting up. He was pointing out some key things and they were making their own conclusion. This, with the edit cuts, was very well executed, and also with the mise en scene. Some directors would have used a flashback, but here they used the image of the shears and the sound as real cuts and moving the story along. Next point is the narration. Since the beginning, we see the main character talking how it's suit. To some people, it's probably just 2 items, but for someone who knows, it's a very intricate process, and how one makes a suit step by step, and by the end, that the suit is not perfect, so one must come to terms with that and then start all over again. This tied into the story very well. Once we find out who the cutter was before, it all comes together just like the suit. But is it a perfect story with a happy ending? Not at all. Thus, he must start all over again and begin with a new one, which brings us to the ending of the movie. Now for my cons. I think the film could have benefited from a more thought out lie from the main character that he feeds the bad guys. Some were good, don't get me wrong, and with his delivery, there is no reason for them to think that he's stringing them along. But the part that is in question is where the cutter tells Francis, played by John Flynn, that Mabel, played by Zoe Dutch, is the rat, and she admits it. But then we have English, the main character played by Mark Rylance, did not consider that Francis would have shot her right there and then and ask questions later. I mean, he did take 6 shots for Mr. Boyle, the mob leader, and for him to think he would wait and think about what he had just heard and how it would play out, I think there should have been a Mexican standoff of a sort, and then English to lay down the options of either they all die in that room or he goes to avenge Mr. Boyle and becomes the next leader of the mob. It would have been better if there was a more definitive option without having this maybe Francis would shoot first and ask questions later situation. Next con is how the main character, every time he would begin to lose control, he would get flashes of the fire from his old shop. And why not sounds of his wife and daughter? I mean, I get it. It would come out in the big reveal at the end, but why not give us small hints or sound bites as the story progressed and the flashbacks got a little bigger? Or maybe when he was stitching up Richie, Francis catches a glimpse of one of the tattoos and then later brings it up, and somehow English comes up with another lie and the focus goes away from the tattoo. So I guess my biggest con would have been that there was not too many close calls. I would have liked it if English would have strung a story to both families and then had them come together in the shop, and then they tell him to step outside, to which he replies that he will, but in reality he's setting them up as a trap to burn down the shop. Doorknobs wouldn't work, doors would be locked, and they would end up being locked up inside as the fire started. Then maybe the cops would show up and clear up things, and English would basically string another lie saying that they forced forced them to leave, and they basically started the fire inside the shop, getting the blame off of himself. Then we see him leave and Mabel get the tape and the money, and they all go their separate ways. But the story was still good. I enjoyed it. So I guess my grade for this movie is going to be a 7 out of 10. If you like Hitchcock's Rope, then you will like this movie since it never leaves the shop, but it's all contained in one location and not too many characters to overwhelm the viewer, and a decent story. So that does it for this review of The Outfit. Please join us next time where we're going to review Morbius.
What did you do to yourself, Doctor?
I wish I knew.
Please like, comment, and subscribe. You can find our social media links below. And like always, keep watching movies.